Hey everyone, Korl here, and today we've reached the end of my GAC 101 series. At this point, we've learned how to use tools to scout our opponents, we've learned how to mod key tunes to utilize more teams, we've looked at popular hard counters that help clarify where to best use our teams, and as of last week, we looked at some of the unconventional counters for a break glass in case of emergency round, where you'll have to improvise on the go. For the final portion of this series, we're focusing on the strategy aspect of GAC. The goal of this video is to get you into a strategic mindset of winning and provide some key tricks to ensure the win. As always, if you like what you're seeing, please like, subscribe, and share with others. So before we begin, I want to note that this information is all in my personal opinions and not official standards, as every player is different. First, and probably most important, is you have to be able to read your opponents effectively. We looked at this a bit in the scouting video, but for a quick recap, Hot Utils is great for an overall assessment on a player, like if they're pay to win or good at GAC, but the key data is from SWGOH, player GAC history, and OmegaBot. So for OmegaBot specifically, look at the three charts at the top. The first chart is what you're most likely to face when you go on offense. The second chart are the teams that they're most likely to take on offense to face you. And the third chart, which is the most important for this video, is how they do against certain teams when they battle them. We're going to use this data to decide the best defense to trip up our opponents while saving the safest counters for offense in response to what they normally set. So while we're looking at these graphs, let's take a look at what's most important for them from a strategy perspective. Starting at the bottom graph, teams faced by your opponent. So what this is showing me is a couple things. One, it's showing me what teams he struggles against, like Iden and CLS, maybe JML. But it's also showing me what teams he doesn't normally face. For example, I don't see SLKR here while I have an SLKR. So from a defense perspective, when I'm picking the default teams I'm going to place on my defenses, I know I'm going to set Iden and CLS and JML. And I'm probably going to go ahead and set SLKR since that's the team I don't know how he's going to do against because it's not one he normally faces in GAC. That aside, let's look at the teams that he takes on offense and the teams that he sets on defense. This here is going to show us what kind of player he is. Is he offense focused? Is he defense focused? So looking at this, I can tell that my opponent brings all of his GLs on offense almost all the time with the exception of J and K every now and then. So for strategy wise, I might save a GL. In this case, I saved JML in the off chance that Kenobi was there. Otherwise, I sort of be in a bad spot where I wouldn't be able to potentially full clear. Whereas I know that he always takes his C on offense. He always takes his JML on offense. And half the time, he took Kenobi on offense too, and he set no GLs. So for this, I was able to say, okay, so I know I'm going to set these certain teams, but I know that he's also going to bring all of his GLs on offense with the exception of Kenobi. So now that gives me the opportunity to set all of my GLs on defense to match him, with the exception of taking JML with me, and I can better choose my other off-meta teams to bring with me, like Gas, like Mallmandos, like my Bounty Hunters, like CLS, or a GG, and other teams like that. And I can build a better strategy of what I'm going to use on offense, where I'm going to use it, and then who I'm going to put on defense, and where I'm going to put defense. Again, strategy-wise, we want to hold him as many zones as we can. So if he never reaches ships and never reaches the back zone, we're in good shape for the GAC round. While we're on the subject about defenses, we should be mixing and matching our teams as much as we can. Bring teams that are on the back wall up front, and bring teams that are on the front wall to the back. Do you have a team that you use on offense every GAC? Set them for a few rounds on defense. Remember, when scouting an opponent, the more teams you see on the top graph, the harder it is to scout, as you're unsure what teams they'll set. Always assume your opponent's going to scout you. So we need to keep this all in mind in order to better set our defenses and make it harder for our opponents to scout us. Second, and also extremely important to understand, is that you don't need a full clear to get the win. I repeat, you don't need a full clear to get the win. Now, this won't matter to high-up in-game players due to the team availability they have, but for the average, newer, or casual player with maybe a single GL or 7 to 8 good teams, it's hard to come up with the offense power you need to begin with, so planning on holding a few zones while taking out 2 zones more efficiently may be all you need. So, set heavy defense you know your opponent can't get through, and bring just enough to get the win on offense. My third tip for you guys is to use Omnicrons. I know they're a newer concept, but there are Omnis that can really elevate your GAC success. The top 3 in order of importance to me are Wampa, Zam, and Qui-Gon Jinn. Starting with Wampa, most players that own JKL already have Wampa Relic, so that's a plus off the bat. 2, he's most likely not using GAC already for you, or you just put him with somebody. 3, the ability to just Omni him alone, he becomes a team on his own, solo. There's no other additional requirements needed to make an actual decent team. So, for those reasons, I think Wampa is the top priority right now in GAC at this point. Second is Zam. For Zam, if you have Bosk, Grief, Mando, and Aura relicked and ready to go on top of the Zam Omni, you're taking mirror matches with other Zam Omnis that are mostly set on defense. You're taking pretty much every non-GL team out there. DR is a good example. Took to him today with no issues. And it's a very smooth battle. So if you've invested in Bounty Hunters, especially if you have Executor, you probably have, then Zam's a good Omni to have as well. And then lastly, Qui-Gon Jinn. So while Qui-Gon Jinn was nerfed a bit since the Omni launch, your opponent is more than likely to still use a GL to solo and nullify the Omni completely. While this may be great on banners for your opponent, you just made them burn an expensive counter that they could have saved for your back wall or somewhere else or for another GL. Speaking of Qui-Gon Jinn, the next tip is that 2-shots are now the new 1-shot. Let's say that you don't want to spend a GL on a Qui-Gon Jinn on the opponent's side. Knowing that leader abilities end if you kill the leader and leaves the battle, you can take a team or an undersized team and kill Qui-Gon, then you can follow up with the cleanup crew and beat the 4 toons that were left standing. This strategy should be saved for when you need to go defense heavy and you bring more teams on offense than normal. And banner-wise, clearing first shot is preferred, but you won't always have that luxury. Other examples of a good 2-shot are a Bass lead JML team with Watt, where you can kill Watt first, then bring in another team for the clear. Maybe on a gas team, if you're able to get 5s out and preferably Rex, that might be worth saving and going ahead and bringing in a cleanup crew to knock out the rest of that. Possibly even getting Kyle out on a Mon Mothma team would be a good reason to just let that go and then go back in with the cleanup crew for a 2-shot. To that point, when in a battle, you can also let the battle time out. So take a look at the Mon Mothma team, for example. If you get Kyle out, maybe even get Carr out, but you know you're not going to win, let the battle time out. All you're doing by doing this is you're taking a loss, but you're allowing for Mon Mothma to not get any more attacks, not have any more options to bring back anybody. No health is going to change. They're not going to get more health back. It's just going to end where it is. And when you go in for the cleanup, their health, TM, everything's going to be as it was as soon as that battle ended. So you don't have to worry about them immediately bringing back Kyle and Kara. And as you know, going into the battle with them gone, they can't be revived anyway. Makes it easier for the 2-shot. The next tip I have for you guys is understanding how to use GLs most efficiently. A lot of players are still in the mindset that the GL comps in Arena are what you should still use in GAC. And that's just not the case anymore. For example, if you go and you set a JML team and you're setting JML, JKL, JKR, Hoda, and another big, huge Jedi Titan for the 5th, you're just as likely, or your opponent's just as likely to attack you with the same GL as if you would have set JML with, Barris, Ezra, Jolie, GMY, etc. So either way, they're going to burn a GL on you. So by setting a weaker GL lineup, like with JML, for example, you're now saving Night Luke, Revan, Hoda, Old Ben, Basla, and now you could potentially take an SLKR team. So at the end of the day, you not only caused them to burn a GL on your JML team still, but you were able to make an additional team out of it. You're able to make a team that beat a GL, and honestly, that's a win-win no matter how you look at it. So it's important to keep that in mind. Build your teams where they're still efficient enough that they're going to draw out a GL, but don't overkill. The chances are that they have a good enough GL counter, like C and Watt, for example, that's going to take your JL team regardless if you have every perfect Jedi on there and Cam and everything. Or if you do JML, you put Jolie on there for Revive, and you put a couple of healing tunes and GMY on there. So keep that in mind with setting your GLs on defense to set yourself up for more success on offense. The last tip for this video is mind games. The biggest weapon you have at your disposal is the ability to stress your opponent out. Now that crystals are tied to GAC, players take GAC a lot more seriously as their progress depends on the win. Although every player is different, most players prefer to attack last to know how they have to do for the win. Attacking first is stressful, as your stress is related to not dropping a single battle. Attacking second is less stressful, as you have a few things that are now working in your favor. Like 1, you know what score you have to beat, and 2, you have the ability to undersize battles to make up on lost banners. Whereas the first time you're attacking, you're prone not to undersize because you want to play it safe to guarantee that you get the win on the first try. Another tool that players use, but I'm not a big fan of, is creating a loadout in hot utils for GAC and a different loadout for general gameplay. The point of this is to make scouting your opponent difficult. If you're going to scout, let's say if I do this and you scout me, for example, and I put a loadout out there with Darth Revan's speed at 320, but I locked into GAC with my Darth Revan speed at 350. So if you're going to go in with the classic gas counter and you say, okay, my Rex speed meets what I need to do to beat, this 320, 330 Darth Revan that I just saw in hot utils, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And then I go into the battle, or you go into the battle to face me, and you didn't check actual speeds because I tricked you when you ran your hot utils query on me. It already had populated my dummy roster, if you will, my dummy mod loadout roster. Now you potentially lost the battle, lost the GAC round, because Gas had to get that win on DR in order to get the full clear. And because I'm running faster than you and faster than you expected, you're losing because I did it. Again, I'm not a big fan of playing that way. I don't do that. But it is a way that a lot of players in higher up divisions do. So it's important to tell you guys so you can keep that in mind and make sure that you're doing your due diligence. It's one thing to check in on hot utils and sort of come up with a strategy, but double check in game every time before you launch a battle to make sure those speeds still check out and your math checks out. Otherwise, you're in for a really bad time. That's it for this strategy video, and that wraps up the GAC 101 series. Thank you all for joining me on this 5-video series, and I hope that you learned a thing or two. Again, please like, subscribe, and share with others if you think it might help them. Thank you all, and I look forward to sharing the next series I'm going to be doing with you guys soon.